horrendous. The Royal Marine Charity were there. There was the Royal Marine Association gig. Coxswains, they turned up. They would have brought their boats, but it was just too rough. The area that had been shut off because of the contact, everything was nobody went there. The Americans decided that they would disregard that because they're Americans. They didn't want to listen to what the Brits had to say, and they took the route that I would have took. They went right at the T-junction, and they had a much, much bigger ID go off. Bridge it's not a Royal Marine Memorial, it's a Commander Memorial.
Routine should become your rock, because then when you've done it, you can get on with your day and you know you're good.
You're not in a four-man fire team in Belfast now.
Tim, how are you, brother?
Oh, very well, thank you. Yourself?
Firing, mate, firing. Absolutely delighted to have you on the show. Been following your Facebook page, the Cold Dip Commando, folks. Tell us, mate, what's all this about?
Well, it started off on a bench in Bournemouth as sort of the Good Ideas Club. I was just recovering from a second cancer, and I do cold water swimming anyway for my own personal benefit and health. And I thought what would be a great idea would be to travel around the country trying to get more and more people involved in it for their mental health and physical health, and to raise money for charity. So that was the Good Idea Club on a bench in the summer in Bournemouth. It's a bit different when you're getting into John O'Groats in the dark and the wind and rain and storm, but yeah, that's why I did it. It's to raise money and awareness for charity, really.
And the charity, is it the Royal Marines charity?
Yeah, there's two charities, the good cause. So I've got the Royal Marine Charity, because they helped me a great deal with the first two cancers, and the third, in fact, financially and support. Also, Lymphoma Action, as the four cancers that I've got or had are lymphoma, and Rock to Recovery, as they help with PTSD, mental health, and issues for serving and non-serving and blue light personnel. So I thought mental health, cancer, and the military were causes that most people can relate to.
So every day for the month of January, is that right? You're getting in the water.
Yeah, I started in Poole in Dorset on the 1st of January, and then worked clockwise around the country, Exmouth, Plymouth, Land's End, then up the west coast, calling to Wales, and then into Ireland, or Northern Ireland, and then back into the UK, Scotland. And I'm now 2 days before the end of the Scottish leg. I'm up in Arbroath at the moment, the home of 4-5 Commando, who were very gracious and hosted me last night in the mess. And I'll finish off. I'm going to go down the east coast and then back along the south coast, finishing on the 31st back in Branksome, where I started.
And which county is that in?
Dorset. So that's it's a small beach that I swim at every morning, and I go down there and I'll have a swim. So I thought it was a fitting place to start and finish. There has been one area that I couldn't get to when I got on Skye. The weather closed in, and we couldn't get the van out of Skye. So a bootneck, Gaz Mason, went to Ullapool for me, put his lid on, budgie smugglers, got in the water, and so there was a bootneck in the water at Ullapool, and I did 2 extra dips in Skye to make up for the one that I lost. And then we picked up the track and picked up the trail back in John O'Groats.
Yeah, if you want a day off, mate, I get in my plunge pool every morning. So I've got you covered, but I will hold my hand up, mate, and say I am a bit of a wimp with the old cold stuff. I'm very skinny. I don't know if that's got to do with it. I got quite low blood pressure as well. I don't know if that's from doing ultra marathons.
Yeah, I'm kind of lucky on that side. I'm more of an old chunk than a young hunk anymore. So it probably takes me a bit longer to get cold. But regardless of the size shape, the colds, it's a great feeling, and it's a great body reset as well. I mean, the science behind it is pretty awesome. And I don't really been an expert. I'm not overly science backed, but I know the benefits mentally and physically that it does for me. And when you're in that zone, that's what you're thinking about. And then when you get out of the water and you dry off and you crack on with your day, you're in a much better place, better able to cope with the problems. The cancer's still there when I get out of the water, but you deal with it in a more positive and productive manner, really.
Yes, very, very true, mate. And we'll come on and talk about the cancer in a bit, because I think it's really important. We had a chat last night, didn't we, about the pH level. Friends at home, I talk about this like almost in every podcast. It's been the most important thing in my life. Everybody should buy some of these on eBay. They're about £2, £3. You just literally peel one off, pop it in your mouth, lick it. And then if you're like me, you can see I come up immediately. It comes up green because I'm 7.25, which is what nature intends human beings to be. You won't always be there. If you go and have a steak dinner, you're going to go into the red because that creates acid in your system. But then you balance it off by having a green smoothie for lunch the next day, and the body works it out.
You got to look at your diet. You got to look at your environment. You got to look at what you're putting into your body. And in the past, when I left the mob, I was a personal trainer and I did nutrition, and my nan would have given me a slap for charging people and saying to them, eat your greens, sit down, don't eat on the run, stop eating processed food. As you said, if you can pick it off a tree or pick it from the ground, it's good for you. If you got to stab it with a fork and put it in a microwave, it's not. So, and that was old school nutrition, because that's the way she was brought up on the land. And everything you say resonates with me. And while I was in hospital, I was speaking to a nutritionist about alkaline diet, about having celery every morning. I'd juice up 4, 5 sticks of celery. And her answer was, well, yeah, that's all very good, all very well and good, but you should always have a balanced diet. But they don't explain a balanced diet in reality as to what it really should be. And it doesn't mean, sausage, egg, bacon. It means, as you said, things that you can pick with your hands, fish you can catch from the sea, and nutrients that the body can absorb and the body can deal with properly. Because you say that as an evolution, the body has only been dealing with this for such a small amount of time. So millions of years of growing to eat properly. And then in a heartbeat, we've changed our diet in our evolutionary stage, and expect the body to just cope with it, which is ridiculous. And I'm guilty of it, and I think we all are, especially going through training. You put out the sad news about Dutchess being shut down, and those that know and have been to CTC know Dutchess. But it was good stuff to get you through training. But again, there's so much more that we could be doing to our bodies to give you that extra percent to fight cancer, to fight illness, to fight, and basically to be healthy. And that's the main objective.
Mm. Yes, it's great. And if you ever want to chat about this, mate, you just pick up the phone to me, because you can see I'm passionate about it. We've been massively lied to our whole lives. The corporations treat us like we're their muppets. The doctors are brainwashed through university. I did 5 years in uni myself, or higher education. I know how it works. Their papers are peer reviewed by people that peer review them because they're getting paid by the farming industry or the dairy industry or this industry or da 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 da, and it's all it's just a bloody shame, it's a shame. Coming back to the cold water dip, so again, Tim, in our history of moving around the forest, moving to new foraging sites, and we would have got wet, wouldn't we? We would have got wet and cold a lot. And anything in nature that happens to us, the body cleverly co-ops, if that's the right word, into making us healthy. So I do the cold water thing every day because my ancestors would have got wet and cold all the time. And it works, doesn't it? It stimulates the vagus nerve and boom, your day just becomes, you turn what potentially is a bad day into a really good one.
Absolutely. I've done river crossing, the mob, you do your river crossings, it's always and icebreaker drills, they're also a chore. Then you don't do it for pleasure and you don't do it for your mental health or for health. You do it because that's a part of the job. And it was only when I started doing the cold water swimming and I was looking at people, and there's the thing, the majority of the people that were coming at the water when I was down the beach were men and women older than me. And that's getting quite hard to find now, people that are older than me, but they were in their sort of 60s and 70s, and they were going in and they've done it all their life, and they're healthy and they're positive and they're productive. And I thought, I'm former Royal Marine and I'm sat on this rock looking at the water, trying to contemplate why I've got cancer and what's going to happen. And when I got in the water and got totally immersed, and it was winter. It was sort of end of October, beginning of November, and I felt absolutely fantastic. I got out, and I wasn't shivering, I wasn't gibbering, I was cold, and the air temperature was quite cold, and that always has an effect on it as well, the wind chill side. But I felt so good, and I could see why these people, and there's a reason why these people are doing it. They're not doing it because they think they're Pam Anderson and they want to run along the beach in a red bikini. These are senior people who know the benefits and have been doing it all their life. And it's changed my life in respect of what I can and can't do. I can't do a lot of things because all the crap and the poison and the chemo that I've had has affected my lungs. And that was a side effect of some of the chemotherapy. It affects the way the lungs transfer gases, and it's ruined my endurance now. I can't do any real endurance. So I have to do something that doesn't involve massive cardiovascular and heart and lung work. And the salt and the swimming and the sea swimming and the cold water swimming definitely does that.
Some days I bought a big whiskey barrel, right? It's 200 liters. So it's huge. It's all like a little swimming pool. I drank that whiskey in a couple of days. No, it was empty, friends. But no, I've got it out there in the garden next to my sauna. And like I say, I'm in that I don't have another option. I don't give myself another option because another thing, routine is so important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Routine should become your rock, because then when you've done it, you can get on with your day and you know you're good. Today I went out there. I'm in that plunge pool. I'm under the water. I'm up and I stay there and I'm like, and the pain in my arms and legs from the cold becomes unbearable after 15 seconds.
Right.
Whereas a week ago, I was staying there for a minute. Have you had a similar experience?
I enjoy cold water showers less than going in the sea. And the colder showers tend to be painful. If I have a shower and you've got to move around and if he stays in one place and the water's hitting one place, it almost burns. But so you've got to keep moving about. But in the water, when you go in, I like to get in as quick as I can. I get up to my knees, and I don't like the wave slapping around my budgie smugglers, because you try and grow an extra couple of inches every wave that comes in. And so I like to just dive in and get under the water. And I love being under the water. As I was the mob, I was a diver as well. And I just love being in the water and under it. But I don't, the sea is slightly different than a static cold water tank. There's nothing you can do. You're in there. And I'm very lucky that I live live down on the south coast by the beach. So, and that is my routine. I'm down there at quarter past 6 in the morning. I take my girlfriend to work. She starts work at 6. I then drive down the beach, and that's when I'm in the water. And it's not painful. And I think you'd find it's a slightly different experience if you go to the beach and you get in the water, because there's a lot of other things going on, the waves, the undercurrent, the things you're walking on. You're a part of the beach. You're a part of nature, and it's a much. I've done a few wheelie bins, and the hardest bit, the most annoying bit, was getting in, because I'm not as flexible as I was, and getting into the wheelie bin and getting out was a complete. It was a farce. It was almost comical seeing me trying to get out of a wheelie bin full of ice, and I wanted to as well. And also, then your fingers aren't working properly, and the same as my hot tub in my garden. And when that was cold, I decided to do a plunge in there, and that wasn't it just didn't give me the same feeling. The cold's there, you're getting all the therapy side, but mentally being in the beach, watching the sun come up, because on the beach that I go to, we're on the south coast, the sun's coming up, and I've stood in the water, just treading water, looking this, and it is. I'm not a religious person, but it's definitely spiritual. You see the sun come up, you got the day started, and everything else from then on, I won't say it's easy, but it's easier to cope with, because you've ticked that box, you've achieved something, I think, quite special every morning, and it doesn't take a lot. And the people who come down, there's a swimming group down at the Win the Morning group, started off with a couple of dozen people, and I wasn't a part of it. I'd go down there every day and do my own swim and do my own thing. And then a lot of the guys, actually, your name was mentioned once on the beach. You should speak, and Dan said, you should speak to this guy, Big Den, Aquaman, as all the people down there call him. And he one day sort of swam up to us and said, and I was getting out of the water and not a part of that Friday morning group, but I just happened to be there every day, and Friday I'm there as well. And they said, you got to come and join. So I started meeting up with them, and then I joined their WhatsApp group, and I think I got over 100 people, and probably about 30 on a Friday. They were down there this morning sending me photographs of the beach and the sunrise. So I fire them back a couple of photographs of me in Loch Ness. So, but it's a different sort of beautiful, every beach, river, loch, lake, cold water, whiskey barrel, you're in there and you're in that moment, and the body is experiencing something, and it's working. It's getting the body working, and as you said, the way it used to when we were, hunter gatherers and running around and going through ice or going through rivers and catching fish, and it's the natural order, the natural law, nature's way of putting things right. So, so I'm lucky I'm doing it on the south coast. But if I was living up in Skye like my brother, I'd be doing it there as well. So
yeah,
and that's again, part of the reason for going around the country, trying to unite. I know it's even in Bournemouth. There's like 5 different groups in a mock, so maybe 3 miles of beach, and they don't really socialise with each other. They all go to their own little beach, and they do their swim, and then they move out. And I thought it'd be nice if you can get all these different groups to be involved in something bigger than just their own little group, knowing that. And it's great because some of the messages I'm getting from the group. There's a group called the Blue Tits, and they're all over the UK. There's the Icemen. There's the Blue Mine Brothers. There's so many different groups, and they're all meeting them up with me. And now the groups are extending, and they're going to different beaches and meeting up. And it's just nice to be part of something slightly bigger. Maybe it's not the core, to a sort of lesser extent, but in the core, you have a shared experience when you go through basic training. You get your lid. I've been up at Speedbridge the other day with a friend, mutual friend of ours, Darren. That training, the camaraderie, all of the things that go with it, enable you to meet somebody after not seeing them for 25 years, and you're still best of friends. Walked in the mess last night, 25 years ago. Saw Dunks, and he walked up and said, "Hello, Tim, how are you, mate? Good to see you again. Let's go get a wet." And that family, that community that had the core, you get that sort of feeling from people on the beach, or in the lake or the river or the loch or wherever you want to go. So there's a lot of benefits to it. It's not the answer to everything, but it certainly helps tick boxes. And if you can get your mind working correctly, and your body, but your mind's going to control it and say, okay, let's beat this. And that's a lot with the cancer. It's just a matter of having a goal and getting rid of it.
Yes, we should give some shout outs. So first off, Ben, if you're watching, Ben's been on the podcast. Ben came on the podcast and was very honest, because he was what military people call a Walter Mitty. Not that I hate that term. I don't care about any of that nonsense myself, but it certainly causes a few issues in the veterans community. And the reason I don't care about it is, as Ben said in the podcast we did together, he was chronically suffering from mental health illness, and off the back of some serious stuff that went on in his childhood, you could say. And he was honest enough to come on the podcast and just tell everyone how he developed this persona that he genuinely believed he was in the forces. It's incredible. But Ben, much love to you, mate. Den Champ, been on the podcast. Absolutely crazy guy. He's so positive, singing in the shower every morning. He's out there picking up the vibe for everyone, or putting up the vibe. And Darren came on our 9-mile speed march from Speedbridge train station, or Achnacarry train station, to the castle, the original Commando speed march route. And we recreated it in full kit. I think it was year before last. And Darren came on as an army commando. And even the morning of the speed march, he was down in the ocean, Tim.
Yeah, it's an absolutely amazing guy. I was so very privileged when he turned up, because Speedbridge, not being Speedbridge it's not a Royal Marine Memorial, it's a Commando Memorial. And it was nice that there wasn't a lot of press, radio. It was just another commando that walked up behind me in a pair of shorts and flip-flops. He said, "All right, Royal?" And I said, "All right, mate, how you doing?" And we shook hands. I just stood there on the mountain with the statue of 3 men on the mountain behind us. And it was, I get a second, spiritual. It was like a spiritual home, the training ground of the commandos. And thankfully he took me to Achnacarry and the training ground, and to get in the water where guys were doing that in the Second World War prior to going abroad and protecting our freedom. And he was telling me all about the run and from the train station and what they did, and yourself. Yeah, utter. And the 3 guys who you mentioned there that I know, and positive, lovely people. And Ben did a great video off his own back. He just phoned me up and said, "Look, do you want me to do a video?" And he got a drone up, and that video has pushed forward because it was so professional and it was so well done. It got more media interest, and that got the ball rolling. And it's thanks to small things that friends do without wanting anything back. They do it because they love you and because they're a part of the family. And it enables other people to see the story and think, "Oh, I'll get involved in that." And now the Royal Marine Charity said to me that I won't say it's not about the money, because the money helps to help with the mental health. It helps with all sorts of things. But one of the things that one of the girls from the Royal Marine charity said was, it's gone beyond money now, because we can get, if we haven't got people to look after, if the Royal Marine charity haven't got, if servicemen and ex-bootnicks don't come forward and say, I'm having issues, I've got problems, I need some help. And I didn't, because as far as I'm concerned, I was a bootnick and I help other people. It's my job to look after my family, look after my kids, my grandkids. And I don't go asking for help, because it's my job to be the provider and the helper. And my father actually got in contact with him and said, can you please speak to my son? He won't ask for help. He's going through cancer. I know he needs help with financially, and eventually I said to the Royal Marine charity, okay, well, what can you do? And they were outstanding. So one of the girls said, people are phoning in now for help. They've always been phoning in, but the momentum of the Cold Dip Commando Challenge is enabling people to, it's given them the doorway or the key to open the door and say, yeah, actually, I've just seen this on TV. I've just seen this on the radio. I've just seen this on a podcast. I would like, I'm actually in a place where I need some help. So it's nice. Obviously, the money's important, because that enables the people to help. But it's no good having a bank full of money and not helping anybody, and not having anybody there to receive the benefits and help. So it's good. I'm really pleased that everything's going so well. I wish I'd got a thin pair of budgie smugglers, but just got the lycra and the spandex.
I've actually got some. They're called flotation shorts. They're like
right.
They're like the old like the old wetsuit material in the old days. I can't remember, the neoprene, isn't it? Neoprene. Yeah, they're neoprene. And you buy them because it helps you when you're training for triathlon. It keeps your core up.
Yeah.
You can focus more on your sort of stroke. And in triathlon, you wear a wetsuit anyway. So it kind of, but yeah, funny enough, I got that. But this is a bit of a weird one. And I should just say, by the way, Ben, who we mentioned earlier, is now serving in His Majesty's forces. But yeah, I like to go to the swimming pool. But I'll tell you what, it's always too bloody cold for me. Right? I'm literally shivering the whole time that I'm in there. So I've just bought I think it's a 1.5 millimeter wetsuit shirt. Just a shirt. I'm quite interested because sometimes if I go with my son, we're there for 2 hours, and that's a long time to be shivering.
Yeah, it goes off. I remember taking my kids in the sea, and my dad said the same with me. You go in the water, you wouldn't get out, you'd be blue, and they'd drag you out. But as kids, you cope with things so much easier. And the parents, you can see them thinking, please get out of the water. I've got to stay in for safety reasons. But they really want to get out. So it's one of the problems when I did my dips. I believe in first in, last out. And yesterday there was people saying, oh, this is fantastic. I didn't realize I'd enjoy it so much. How long can we stay in for? And I said, 30 seconds more, that's it. And it's your first one. And I'm mainly because I know my limitations. And everybody is different, as you alluded to earlier. Everyone has got their own threshold. Everybody's got their own amount of body fat. Everybody's got their own injuries that pick up. You've got dodgy knees. I cut my finger once, bad damage to nerves. And that's my indicator. If that finger starts to go white or starts to feel cold in the rest of my body, I know that's my time limit. And then I get out. If I haven't done my whatever allotted time, it doesn't matter, because every day is different. Every environment is different. But that's my combat indicator. So I'll make everybody get out before me, because I don't want people in the water. Because people stay too long, and I'll say, once it gets comfortable, you need to be getting out. If you're not used to it, if it's not something you're doing on a regular basis, you can't just go in the water and sit in there for half an hour and then come out, because your core body temperature drops. and it's your inner core that you got to try and keep warm, and it takes so long. You get like almost a secondary shock, but it's great. Swimming pools are some of the coldest ones because it's not moving. Some of the lakes and the waves and the beaches, I would say warmer, but they're not as cold as some of the static waters.
So, other than our good friend Darren, how's the support been up? Did I see Mark Ormrod came to support you in Plymouth?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, Mark, it was the same place that he did his mile swim. So, the second day was like a summer's day in Exmouth. The third day, day 3 at Firestone Bay in Devil's Point, was horrendous. The Royal Marine Charity were there. There was the Royal Marine Association gig. Coxswains, they turned up. They would have brought their boats, but it was just too rough. And Mark turned up, and again, meeting people like Mark, it makes you realise that life is just about living, and no matter what it throws at you, he does. He's the commando spirit. He just cracks on.
Friends at home, Mark is a triple amputee, in case you're wondering, and he recently got the world record for swimming a mile in the open ocean. Was that right, Tim?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he went to Devil's Point. I've been people going to Devil's Point. Just getting in the water was a big enough challenge for them, and they're able-bodied, 2 arms, 2 legs, and everything working properly. And that was a challenge. So for Mark to swim mile, I thought, he said, "Well, I won't be able to get in the water with you." I said, "That's fine. I didn't want to be, I'm there. I can swim probably 20 yards before I've got to stop." And the trouble is when you swim and you stop to try and get your breath back, you're not, because you've got to tread water. So I only swim when I'm swimming along the beach. I don't swim out into deep water, because the moment I'm out of the depth, I'm trying to tread water, and that's I can't breathe. But he did it with a total respect to the guy. He's and a lovely bloke as well. Just a humble bootneck. Just a guy who's just getting on, cheerfulness to face adversity, and just cracking on with life. It's great to meet people like Mark.
Yes. So, Tim, tell me, when were you in training?
I joined 1980, June 30th, 1980, 264 troop. In fact, I have one of the guys from 264 on the beach with me.
Mate, you don't look old enough.
You're lovely, aren't you? It's great having that connection with people still. I'm getting guys who are turning up you go through basic training.
Did you go down south, Tim?
No, I didn't. Actually, I came up here when everyone was going down south. Back in the day when Camacho, it's 4-3 Commando now. And I went up to the MCT, onto the rigs for the Maritime Counter-Terrorism side. As a very young Marine, I was sort of really lucky. One of those swan runs that you think, I get this great draft. And at the time, the Falklands was never going to happen. Everyone was going to go to Ascension. So, I was up in Camacho doing the MCT work while everyone was down south. And but my cousin was down south. He was my cousin was in 4-2. He went down. Obviously, a lot of my troop and my mates. And I got down there for the camera when it came back. So that was the closest I got, was going on the lash with the boys when they got back from off the camera. But again, I was lucky. Again, I was lucky. I would love to have gone down, but you don't know how things would turn out had I been.
You might not have come back, mate.
Yeah. I lost one of my landing craft, Foxtrot 4, got hit from HMS Fearless, and I served on Foxtrot Juliet, which was its replacement. And Scouse Rotherham, who was actually a GD sergeant, it was GD sergeant, and he had to get an SQ, or special qualification for those people who are watching that aren't up to date with our abbreviations. And he had to do a SQ, so he he chose Landicraft. So he was on my Landicraft 3s course. And then he went on to the 2s course and went on to Fearless. And when Foxtrot 4 got hit, we lost some good guys on it. So you can't, there is no case of, I wish I'd gone down or I wish I got gone for it, because you don't know, you don't know what might happen. You can only be where you are. And same as the golf, I left the Corps, did 9 years, left the Corps, and I hated it. Total fail civvy. I just really could not cope with the way I wasn't ready to leave the Corps, basically. So I left, and within 18 months, not thankfully, but the Gulf War kicked off and I got recalled. So I was, by the time the paper had gone through, got back in, it was all over. But I I'd gone home, if that makes sense. I felt like I was back where I belong. And so it's been an interesting journey.
When you say you got recalled, Tim, did you then go and serve another term or?
Yeah, I did another 9 years.
Okay, yeah.
So I did 9, left. I started at 22, but when it got to 9, I had a young family, and I just thought there was a lot of other things, and I thought life would be better for my family if I was out doing a 9-to-5 job and being the provider. And so I left thinking I was going to join the police or I was going to stay out, and it just didn't. It didn't go that way. And so then when the golf kicked off, I got not a signal, I got a letter saying I've been offered a position back in the Corps. So I just basically came back in, started off where I went to CGC for 3 days to get a new fitting for blues and some admin, and then went back to, and it was like when I went back to Paul, it was as if I'd been on a draft. I mean, most drafts, 18 months, 2 years. So I've been a civvy about a year and a bit. So it wasn't even a real draft. Just took a holiday for a year and a bit, and then cracked on, left, and then the second golf kicked off just after I left the second time. So sort of professional trench dodger, really. But I managed to change my perspective. I became a personal trainer for a few years, and then I went up to Baghdad on the circuit, and did Iraq, Afghanistan on the CP circuit. So,
did you get into any scrapes out there, Tim?
It was, there was some spicy moments. My coastline got hit. We went out one day in our Land Cruiser, just 2 vehicle, taking a client down to a petrochemical plant, and we got to a T junction, and we had the route planned out, and I just didn't like the look of the road to my right. So I changed the whole route, said we're taking a left. And as we approached the bridge, there was a bridge going past around by the cemetery, and there was a kids playing on the bridge, and it was just everything looked okay. And then as we approached, the paving slabs had been moved, or the curbstones, and the next thing you know, it was a case of you realise it, and then it's too late. And there was a 15 pounds explosive wrapped around an artillery shell, and it lifted the armoured Land Cruiser up, trashed everything. Respect to my driver, Padge, who was an ex-2-1 lad. He managed to keep it straight, and we got over the bridge. Second vehicle made it over, and we limped back, and we got back to camp okay. In fact, a lot of other call signs in the area after the contact report all just mustard came around to us and escorted us back in. And then proceeded to get a bollocking from the ops manager for taking a brand new Land Cruiser. Like as if I knew what was going to happen. I thought I'd take a new one. And then, you know, every time you go out, it might happen, but you don't take a bad vehicle just in case you get hit. And there was a lot of shit flying because I changed the route, and the collateral damage was quite bad as well. But then about 2 hours later, the area that had been shut off because of the contact, everything was nobody went there. The Americans decided that they would disregard that because they're Americans. They didn't want to listen to what the Brits had to say, and they took the route that I would have took. They went right at the T-junction, and they had a much, much bigger ID go off and the consequences for them were a lot more than they were for us. So I was then vindicated by changing the route and taking a different route. But I mean, you know yourself, if you look at a situation and if you're in control of it, you're in command of other people's lives, you have to make the choice and the call that you feel is right. And I was kicking myself afterwards thinking, I should have never gone that route. But had I not, then we would have just driven into a much, much bigger problem. So I was kind of vindicated afterwards, but it affected the guys quite badly. And in fact, Padge said, "That's me. I'm done. I can't do this. I'm going home." And we lost a good guy there. He didn't want to stay in theatre. So, but that was just there's lots of everyone has to go through their process. And
did you say you worked in Iraq?
Yeah, Iraq, Basra, and Baghdad.
What year were you in Iraq?
That was 2000. It was after the first Gulf, so we just got back in at 2003, 4. Was that
wasn't Olive Security, was it?
No. I was working for the Foreign Office at Basra Palace. And then I went up to, after a year there, because we're in Land Cruisers and you're high profile, but you've got good armour, you've got protection, but you're a target the moment you drive out. And the insurgents, they've only got to sit on plant something in under some curbstones or wherever they want to put them, and just sit back and wait for a Land Cruiser. And there's enough security companies out there that sooner or later someone's going to come along, and they don't really care what company it is. They just want to hit you. So I transferred that. I went back, flew home. I didn't even go home to the family. I landed and I got a job offer with another company up in Baghdad, but they were all soft skins living outside the green zone. And so we just rocked around in soft skins with our own armour put in, bit of pig iron and stuff. And that was I felt safer not being in, even though I wasn't in an armoured truck or an armoured Land Cruiser. I felt safer because you were anonymous. I think the only time I felt uneasy was if a Humvee or an American coastline came anywhere near me, because they would just, if you're sat next to them as something goes off, you're going to notice it. It's not a nice place to be. So if you saw an American coastline, we used to try and avoid them because they were just bullet magnets, which is unfortunate, but that's the way someone's going to get hit. And if you're stood next to them, they get you by proxy. And so that was interesting. And then off to Afghanistan. When it got too spicy in Iraq, I decided Afghan might be a better option. And I just stayed on the circuit then for sort of 5-10 years. Latter years going more towards the sort of 2 years looking after the England football squad prior to the Joburg World Cup and just doing private jobs.
Have you ever worked with Bernie?
Bernie?
Don't want to say his surname because we don't say it. Right. We don't say it on the. If you'd know Bernie if you knew him, he's done.
He's on the circuit. No, then
he's done a lot of stuff in that area. Quite a famous bootneck, I suppose you'd say.
The Bernie I'm thinking of is a very good skier, and I'll see him probably 3 times a week and he's a very famous booter, probably the fittest man I've ever met in my life. If that's the same Bernie, but he's more sport related than.
No, I don't. I think we might be on
a different one.
Different
Bernie must just be a people call Bernie just excel at everything they do, because and you'd know the Bernie I'm talking about as well. But I don't want to be throwing his name all over the net, because he might not appreciate that as well. So
yeah, of course. So Tim,
the nice thing was all the teams that I work with. Again, if you join a team, it hasn't all got to be all bootnicks, paras, engineers. It doesn't really matter what the cap badge is. You're all out of purpose, and it was like being back in the mob. You had that feeling of you stood side by side somebody, and then they've got you back. And
did you ever get people that were really shit?
Yeah, but unfortunately, that's if you take a cross section of the world and life in general, policemen, firemen, nurses, bootnecks, milkmen, you're going to get the guys who are good, and then you're always going to get that percentage that somehow slip through the net, and all you can do is avoid them and try and train them if you can. I've had a couple of people who they would have always been a liability, because nobody took responsibility to say your NSPs are shocking. You need to, nobody took them aside. It was almost, well, it's not my job to train them, and to be fair, it's not their job. But if they're on your team, you can't just offload them to somebody else every time their name comes up. It's like the last kid on the playground who doesn't get picked for football. Sometimes people need to be taken aside and told what they're doing is wrong. Could be their driving. And I have to put my hand up on that one. My driving was atrocious. Absolutely, probably still is. That's why I got promoted quickly.
Did you serve in Northern Ireland, Tim?
Yeah, I was. First tour was 4-2 in South of Mar, or Besbrook, South of Mar.
I'm just thinking that
82, 83.
That must have helped. Learning those drills must have helped in the Middle East, I'm guessing. Patrol skills and
the teamwork side of it, and obviously the South of Mars are slightly different. It's a wet, cold. Well, it can be extremely wet and cold, an unforgiving place, and it's the discipline and the routine and getting yourself into a particular mindset. And in fact, it helped me when some of those sort of senior CP guys used to say, Tim, calm, in the early days, calm down. You're not in a 4-man fire team in Belfast now. You're not everybody is a terrorist. So every time you see someone on a roof, not everyone's got an RPG. And in my first few weeks on the ground, I was a bit jumpy, and all that did was make the client feel jumpy. So being a good soldier is great, but when you're a fighter, or when you're in a PSD team, you're trying to put the client at ease. You're trying to make them feel that everything's okay, and there has to be a visible step up when it starts getting. If it starts to get loud and noisy, and you think things are going to happen, and you start getting animated, and you start to look around more, and you're more observant, and your body actions are a signal to the client or to the principal that something's not right. But if you're like that all the time, they either they're in a state of panic all the time, or they get complacent. And then when you start to look around and the level goes up, they don't notice it because you're at that level all the time. So in the early days, it was new to me, and it's a type a good learning curve. And I had a very good team leader who was ex-RMP, airborne RMP, and an ex-bootneck. With him, he was ex-Foreign Legion and then Corps. And you have to learn quickly, because if you don't, you then start to get pushed down the ladder, and people don't want to work with you. So I was very lucky to have some really good guys around me, but if you got people who cover your back and you've got people who look after you and take the time to explain what you're doing wrong, then you don't make mistakes. And if you make mistakes, you learn from them, and then you don't make them again. But there were people who were just bums on seats, and the security companies they didn't want to send them back because they were getting paid ridiculous money for that person to be in country, regardless if they're on the job. They'd be sat in a storeroom, or they'd be sat blanket stacking or doing something trivial, but they're still getting paid pop stars wages, and the company was still getting paid the bigger percentage. So I understand why they didn't send them straight back. But all that did really, not want to turn this into a drip session, but all it did was it meant the guys who were on the ground were working harder and longer because there were people out there that, and I'm talking at a small amount, I was very lucky. The companies I worked with were quite picky, but people fall through the net, but it was a different time back then. It was a bit of the Wild West when we first went out. But it's it makes you who you are.
Yes.
And one of the things about Northern Ireland, though, Chris, you mentioned, or I mentioned the Cold Dip Challenge. I went to Antrim, and that's 6 Mile Water, which is the entrance from the lock, from Loch Ney into Antrim. And that was an area that I used to patrol. I was out there on up lifespan. And one of my old instructors from training, who took me through, took me through basic training, turned up in Belfast to show support, which I thought was, it's great having a squaddy there, but having one of your instructors walk up, slap me on the back and say, "Well done, Royal, good effort. Couldn't have you in Northern Ireland without coming and saying, well done." That was quite special. Even though he used to beat the hell out of me, and it was nice to have people like that turn up.
I had my troop boss on the podcast the other day, or not? Yeah, from training. Jock Hutchinson. He was quite. He's probably just about like the best troop boss you could have in training. He was hard as nails. Always led from the front. Wasn't any kind of bullying side to him or anything. Very nice man. Very nice man. Yes, Tim. Listen, how can people support you? How can they best support you? How can they get hold of you? Where can they find your route? And where can they donate money?
Okay, well, there's a website which has got the route on it. I say we're just finishing the Scottish leg now. That's www.colddipcommando.com. And if you go to the website, there are routes and links or they show the routes when we go through, but there's also links to the Just Giving page. If you go straight to Just Giving, it's Cold Dip Commando. If you search Cold Dip Commando or Just Giving, that's the way you can, if you want to donate, and I'll be very happy if you do, you can donate there. Support-wise, I get an awful lot of emails people who aren't coming for a dip, and they've made a donation, but they email me separately and say their little stories. And my dad's just died of lymphoma, or my brother's just been diagnosed, or my wife's, all their stories are coming in. And I just say, if I haven't responded to a story personally yet, I will get around to it. And the same as the donations. I started off thanking every single person who made a donation, and not a generic thanks for the donation, cut and paste, but a personal response to each donation. But there's that many, which is fantastic, and I'm totally humbled and happy that it's happening like that. But I don't get the time in the day between driving to the next location, doing things like this that you're helping me with, and taking your time to help promote it. So I will get round to thanking everybody individually. But until that time, hopefully, thanks everyone that has donated and supported. And if they want to turn up and get in the water, we'll turn up and just say thank you. That's great. Or just being nice to people. Nothing to do with the Commando Challenge. I kind of got a friend of mine said, I like the way you always say, be good to each other at the end of your little interview, your Instagram things.
Yes.
And that's the best you can do. If you're good to people, good things happen to you. And if good things don't happen to you, you're not being good to people for that reason. You're doing it because it's nice to help and it's nice to give something back. And tomorrow's not a guarantee for everybody, or anybody. So you just got to be the best version of you and help other people to be the best version of themselves. So if this helps to do that, I'm chuffed that that's enough. And I thank people like yourself who give me the platform to share it.
Hey, brother, absolutely my pleasure. Anytime. Tim, wish you all the best. Keep smashing it. To everybody out there, we'll put all the links below where you can catch up with Tim or make a donation or send a good luck message, etc., etc., etc. And that just leaves me to say, if you could like and subscribe to the podcast, click the notification bell. I've got my own challenge coming up soon. I'll be running across the Sahara Desert in April, I think it is. These things you do when you're 53 years old. So stay tuned for that one. Much love, folks. See you soon.
Cheers, Chris. Thanks, mate.